As I've worked with tons of people that have had concussions, traumatic brain injury, what I've found over and over and over again is that they're not actually addressing the underlying mechanism of a concussion. So most importantly, I'm going to explain to you what that is because most people don't know. They get these recommendations to just go lay in a dark room and thinking that's going to solve their problems. And in all actuality, that's not a solution at all. Just this last week, we had a kid that was already scheduled for an intensive. I've been waiting a little bit of time to get in for their intensive, but right before he came, he got tripped, he hit his head on a pole, and he actually was out cold for like 10, 15 minutes. He had a severe concussion, traumatic brain injury. And after you're out of the hospital, they basically said, hey, should we still come? And I said, of course you should come, because again, clearly the research shows that when we do photobiomodulation or hyperbarics right after it has a very neuroprotective effect. They came and he was, he's kind of out of it. He wasn't his normal self. His motor systems were involved. He had a lot of positive neurological findings. We got him in, we did 3 days of therapy. By the third day, he was back to his normal self. He had all of his energy back. He had mental clarity back. He was actually himself again. And the first 2 days, the mom was worried that that would never happen. But it was because we got to it extremely quickly. We were able to make changes really, really fast. A lot of people aren't that lucky that they can get in right away and they can get those therapies right away. But search for someone that at least has those therapies right away. Long term, maybe you've been dealing with this for a while, but those therapies are still really effective. What we've seen clinically over and over and over again. It takes longer. It's not as efficient as if you get to it instantly, but you can still make really traumatic changes if you've been struggling for a while. So I'm going to explain to you what actually happens in concussion and protocols to do for it. Number one, so when our brain gets injured, what happens is a cell gets inflamed and starts running out of energy. And the reason why that happens is because our mitochondria get affected. And when our mitochondria get affected, we can't produce ATP efficiently. So then what happens in the cell is we can't influx and exflux sodium and potassium appropriately. So then the cell starts to swell, then it bursts. That's called apoptosis. Then our immune system gets involved, starts coming in and trying to clean that up. That's one very important mechanism. Secondly is we get what's called neurovascular uncoupling. So we actually can't get enough blood flow to the brain for it to heal efficiently in a lot of cases. So these are two really, really, really important things, because unless you stop that process of apoptosis or you restore actual blood flow to the brain, now that can't heal efficiently. I know this has probably never even been introduced to you, and it's the underlying mechanism of what's going on. And this apoptosis is happening over and over and over again, because what happens is when that breaks open, we get a release of glutamate, and what happens is that's excitotoxic. So this actually starts happening throughout many, many, many cells in the brain over and over and over again. Unless you get energy back to the brain and blood flow back to the brain in a very quick manner, you're gonna have more and more and more damage that occurs. And that's why sometimes people get a concussion, they have very little symptoms, but as the weeks and months go on, they start getting more and more and more symptoms, because that process is just going and going and going, and it hasn't been controlled. So what do you have to do? Number one is you have to restore energy to these cells. You have to get ATP back, and you have to get blood flow to the brain. Yes, rest is excruciatingly important, and getting enough rest is very important, but you should not be laying in bed all day. You should be up and moving. When you move, when you walk, and obviously nothing fast, nothing quick, but you should be getting an aerobic activity that's gonna start getting some of that blood flow back to your brain. And then secondly, you need a diet that's extremely anti-inflammatory, no gluten, no dairy, no soy, no processed foods, no sugars, to get that inflammation down in your diet and getting enough antioxidants to start to help that mitochondria function well. Because as we start adding in antioxidants, we decrease what's called reactive oxygen species, and now that mitochondria can start functioning more efficiently. There's different supplementation you can also do for that mitochondria. But here's my two favorite by far therapies that you should be doing, and really everyone should be doing when they have a concussion, and they should be doing it as soon as possible. One is laser or photobiomodulation therapy. It has been shown over and over again in the research to address this underlying mechanism. It dramatically increases ATP production through what's called cytochrome C oxidase. It increases that in our mitochondria. It helps with the vascularization, so it helps with that recoupling of our neurovascular system. So it helps with increasing blood flow back to those areas to get them to heal. Secondly, and thirdly, decreases inflammation. So now the mitochondria can actually start to function more appropriately. My next favorite one is hyperbaric oxygen therapy, shown in tons of research to support people after a concussion. And the reason why is because when we pressurize oxygen, it actually dissolves that oxygen into our plasma, and now we can absorb oxygen at a much higher rate. Well, if anyone remembers from early on biochemistry, is we need oxygen in either glucose or ketones to produce energy. That's where it starts. We have to have oxygen, and the more of it we have, the more supply we have, the more eventual better mitochondrial function we can have, and then ATP production we can have, or energy production we can have. The more energy we have, the faster and better any system can heal and function. So those are the two therapies that I would introduce as quickly as possible. So just to recap, if you've had an injury, number one, get your diet under control, get inflammation down, get antioxidants to the system, get moving as much as you can comfortably without creating more symptoms, get laser therapy and hyperbarics. You will be in a much better spot very shortly after doing those, because that's what we've seen over and over and over again with hundreds of patients. Reach out to those locations, either call them, email them, or send us a direct message. We'd love to help you and get started right away.